Boa tarde, pessoal. Meu nome é Rafael. Eu sou orientador da rede Education USA no Brasil, especificamente na cidade de São Paulo. Eu estou hoje aqui na Universidade Presbiteriana Mackenzie, que é um dos 3 centros na cidade de São Paulo. Nós também temos centros no Colégio Etapa e na FAAP. No Brasil como um todo, são mais de 40 centros que têm a missão de prover informações precisas, abrangentes e atualizadas sobre oportunidades de estudo nos Estados Unidos. E uma das formas que nós encontramos de fazer isso é através de eventos como webinars. Hoje, especificamente, então, nós temos os representantes aqui da Universidade da Flórida, que vão falar sobre oportunidades de financiamento nos Estados Unidos, focando especificamente na Latin American and Caribbean Scholarship. Então, sem mais delongas, vou passar a palavra aos palestrantes. So, Matthew, I believe the floor is yours.
Awesome. Obrigado, everyone. That's about all the Portuguese I probably know at all. So thank you so much for coming out today and learning a little bit more about the University of Florida, as well as the Latin American and Caribbean Scholarship. We are super excited to have you all here with us, and we are excited to present with you. Today, you are joined by myself. So today we're going to be going over, so we're going to do a quick introduction of our presenters, and then we're going to do a brief overview of the University of Florida. And then we're going to talk briefly about the Latin American and Caribbean Scholarship, and we're going to give you an overview of that scholarship and how you could potentially get that scholarship if you attended the University of Florida or any of the state universities in Florida specifically. Then we're going to talk about some funding opportunities that you would have as an undergraduate student here at UF. And then we also can talk about funding opportunities as if you decided that you were here to go to graduate school. And then we're going to do some closing remarks and some next steps, and then we'll take your questions at the end. If you do have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to enter them into the chat. And either myself or Samantha can answer them in the chat, or we will be able to also talk to you a little bit at the end with the questions as well. But I'm going to do a brief introduction of ourselves. So my name is Matthew Lisco, and I am our International Recruitment Manager here at the University of Florida. I've been with the university for about 5 years now, there's pretty much nothing that I don't know about this institution when it comes to scholarships or funding or aid or pretty much a little bit of anything that we would have at this institution. So I can pretty much answer your questions on anything that we have. And I'm joined today by my colleague, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Hola a todos, my name is Samantha Garcia Bracho. I am actually from Venezuela, the neighbor country. So yes, I am the International Admissions Officer that will be here helping you all. And I have been within this position for about 6 months or so. So I'm still very excited to learn as we go through.
All right, so I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to pass the floor over to Samantha. Samantha, when you're ready for me to just change slides, just let me know.
Sounds good. Alrighty, so just to give you an overview of our University of Florida, as you can see, our beautiful campus in the picture. So we're the oldest and most prestigious institution in the state of Florida. We are our campus serves around 55,000 students pursuing undergrad degrees, master's degrees, PhDs, certificates, and all in between. But do not be scared of the large numbers, because our professors actually offer office hours, which is the perfect time to go over for the questions. Maybe you can ask it for letter of recommendations and even plan to do research together. And the reason I mentioned research is because we are a land, sea, and space grant research university. So that means that all of our faculty are required to conduct research at any point in their career. It's very professional and in their programs. Another thing to mention is that for undergrad degrees, we have over 120 programs, and for a master's, we have over 200 programs. And all of them will be accounted in our 16 colleges and also 5 professional pathways. Matt? Awesome. So we are very excited to announce that we are the top 5 public institution in the United States. This is our second year in a row, and we're just so happy to share this with you and your families as well. Just to give you an example for undergrad students, is that our 6-year graduation rate is 92%, which is 30% higher than the national average. So we just like to tell students, just imagine yourself, picture yourself graduating from UF and become part of these national and international rankings as well. And we're located in Gainesville, Florida. So we are, let's call it like some sort of like a suburban feeling. So it is located 2 hours away from Orlando, 2 hours away from Tampa, 1 hour and a half away from Jacksonville. So those are kind of like the big cities, and 5 hours away from Miami, in case you were wondering. Yeah, feel free to keep going, Matt.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Samantha. So now we're going to transition and talk a little bit about the Latin American and Caribbean Scholarship, which we also like to call the LAC Scholarship. For the remainder of the presentation, we're probably going to refer to it as the LAC Scholarship. So if you see it on here, you'll be able to see the LAC and that kind of stuff, but that's usually what we're probably going to talk about. All right. So hold on 1 second, sorry. Sorry about that. The presentation stopped. Sorry about that. Okay, so sorry about that. Pardon the issue with the computer. So what is the LAC Scholarship? So the Latin American and Caribbean Scholarship is a scholarship that allows students from eligible Latin American and Caribbean countries to be classified as residents for tuition purposes, and provides it with a significant savings over standard tuition rates. So what does that mean for you? So as a student from Brazil, as long as you are a Brazilian national, so as long as you have a Brazil passport and you do not hold a US passport, you can apply for a scholarship through our institutions and be awarded a $500 scholarship per semester. And with this $500 scholarship, what that's going to do is it's going to take your tuition down from out-of-state tuition to our in-state tuition costs. So this is a huge opportunity because we really have a lot of partnerships with a lot of with Brazil specifically. But we know that one of the biggest issues with coming to school in the United States is being able to finance your education. So with this scholarship, you will be able to, like I said, be able to potentially try to get the scholarship, and then you'll be able to transition your scholarship down. Now, this isn't only a University of Florida specific scholarship. This is a scholarship at any of the state universities in Florida. So there's 11 state universities in the state of Florida. Some of the other ones are like Florida State Universities, University of South Florida, University of Central Florida, Florida International University, and the list goes on. So the nice thing is you can apply for these scholarships at every school. The state of Florida does say that there's only 3 things that you have to have in order to get this scholarship. So you do have to be awarded a $500 per semester scholarship using state funds or federal funds. So there has to be a $500 scholarship using state funds or federal funds. Now, if you're a graduate student, you cannot use your assistantship or your fellowship money to help pay for that $500 scholarship. It has to be a separate scholarship that, again, is using state funds or federal funds in order to get this. The student must be a full-time student. Even in your last semester, you must maintain a full-time credit hour. For undergraduate students, that means that you must have at least 12 credit hours registered for. If you're a graduate or professional student, you do have to have at least 9 credit hours registered for. So you must maintain a full-time academic record, be a full-time student every single semester to get this award. And that has even, like I said, even in your last semester. And then you must be also in good academic standing with the university. What does that mean? Is that you have to maintain a certain GPA. For the University of Florida, it's a 2.5 GPA. But when I was creating this presentation, I looked at the University of Central Florida, and they require students to maintain a 3.0 GPA. So for every university, it might be slightly different as for what they mean is in good academic standing. But with UF, you have to be in good academic standing. You must not have had any issues with the conduct committee at the institution, and be in a good standing with the institution. So like I said, every university has slightly different policies of what that means with good academic standing, but every university does require the $500 scholarship, as well as for you to be a full-time student in order to receive this. Now, like we said before, this is the Latin American and Caribbean Scholarship, so it is eligible for any student who is a non-resident alien from any of these countries. I pulled the list for South America, but there's also students from the Caribbean as well as Central America who can apply for this as well. But Brazil being one of our top countries, I know of a lot of students from Brazil who do receive these awards and that kind of stuff. And it's a great scholarship to get because it does drastically reduce the tuition costs. And I'm actually going to, when I transition to the next slide, you're going to be able to see how it does drastically change the tuition costs. And I believe I'm going to have Samantha go over this one.
For sure, for sure. So yes, you can take a look at the numbers. Just take a second, breathe in, breathe out. That might seem a little big, right? But we promise this is obtainable. The University of Florida is actually one of the cheapest universities in the United States if you're thinking about coming to America. So what we have here is an average undergrad out-of-state tuition per semester. Alrighty, so why out of state? So anybody who does not pay taxes to the state of Florida will be considered an out-of-state or international student. Okay, so even domestic students, even students who live in the United States but do not live in Florida will be paying this. Okay, so what we see here, it is at least $14,000, $15,000 per semester, right? But please know, but because we are a state institution, that means that the tuition is always going to stay the same. Okay, it might change a little bit, just a little bit, but it's always going to stay the same. What is going to change, though, is going to be all those other prices, such as the room, the meal plan, the books. It depends. Where do you want to live? What do you want to eat? Does your professor require the textbooks, or do your professors rather have a PDF copy? So those are things that may change, but these numbers that we have here for you are never going to change because, as I said, these are stated by the government, the Board of Governors. Alright, so but if as you can tell here, with the Latin American and Caribbean Scholarship, the tuition portion is drastically going to change. Okay, so in a little bit, we're going to talk about other type of scholarships, but please know that if you have this type of scholarship, the Latin American Caribbean Scholarship, you will not qualify for the out-of-state scholarships, okay? We will talk about this a little in the future, a little bit. So yeah, as you can see, the numbers are slightly different, and that is because you will be kind of qualifying for what we call the Florida tuition. So if you don't have the scholarship, you will be out-of-state/international tuition. But if you have this scholarship, you will be considered what we call the Florida tuition. Okay.
All right, so in order to receive the LAC scholarship, if you would decide you wanted to apply to the University of Florida, there is a couple of steps that you do have to go through in order to get this. So you can't just say, oh, well, I'm from Brazil or I'm from a Latin American and Caribbean scholarship, I automatically get it. We do require students to go through a slightly different process. So the first thing, the LSE award must be a scholarship. It cannot be an employment. So if you decide that you wanted to come to our campus and have a job on campus, maybe working in the rec center, the library, or one of the dining halls, that can't be considered a scholarship. So it can't be employment based. But so it has to be a scholarship that you're receiving from a department. Now, every department here at the University of Florida can nominate one student each semester for the LAC award. So the LSE award must be, like I said before, $500 per semester and consists of either state or federal scholarship or a combination of state and federal funding with equal matching funds from private business, private foundations, and public agencies. So it has to be a public funding source that you're getting the scholarship money from. The LAC award may be provided to a student who has dual citizenship between eligible countries. So if you're a dual citizen between Brazil and, say, Ecuador, you would be eligible for this scholarship still. But if you have a dual citizenship between and that kind of stuff with maybe one of the countries that doesn't fall into this list, then that's when there could potentially be an issue. The LAC award does require full-time enrollment. We talked about that before, even in your final semester. The LAC award letters must be provided to our International Center each semester in order to receive the change from out-of-state to in-state changes. And then the LAC award does not require you to be present in the US. So if you are studying abroad, or if you are doing maybe if you are being a online student, you can still be eligible for the LAC award as well. So how do you start the LAC conversation? How do you start the conversation with a department at the institution? So like I said before, each department can nominate one student per semester for the LAC scholarship. Every department, though, has a different qualifications for students in order to receive the LAC award. Some departments here at UF just will ask you to maybe send an email to the department and request that you be offered the scholarship. Other departments, though, like the College of Journalism, require an application including a typed letter, a resume, maybe a letter of recommendation, and a financial need form. So remember that every single department here is different. And UF has over 200 different departments that have 200 different ways that they can offer you the scholarship. So again, every department can nominate one student per semester. But again, each department has a different requirement for how you can actually get the LAC scholarship at our institution. The biggest advice I can say is to contact the department you are interested in being part of and ask what are the requirements in order to achieve the LAC award. So every department has usually somebody who's going to be able to talk to you and give you suggestions on what you need to do in order to receive the scholarship. But again, you do need to contact each department that you're interested in applying to. And this is mostly for our students who are applying as transfer students or graduate school students. It's really important that you do reach out to those departments if you want to receive the LAC award and ask them what the requirements are. If you're applying as a first-year student, you reach out to the department that you want to join at UF and see what the requirements. So for freshman students, you are applying originally for a spot on our campus, not for a spot in a specific department. So it's really important that even as a freshman that you are also going to reach out to the department that you want to join once you are a student here at our institution.
Alrighty, so I, as an international student, the first question is going to be, how am I going to afford education in the United States? That's probably going to be a little expensive, but and the good news is that we help you to get there. So right now, I'm going to go through funding opportunities for undergrad students, and then Matt is going to talk about it for grad students. So the first thing that we offer at the University of Florida, at least for undergrad, it's going to be the merit-based scholarships. So when you apply for the university, you will be applying for admission purposes and scholarships at the same time. Same application, you don't need to fill out anything else. It's going to be the same, okay? So we employ a holistic review process in which we review both the academic and the non-academic aspects of a student life. So we're going to review your transcripts, your test scores. We're going to review your curriculum, all the extracurriculars that you have done. The essays are a very essential part of the application as well. So that's the only way that we get to know you better. So our office, the Office of Admissions, is going to be the one deciding if you will be eligible or if you're going to be a good fit for the university. And then the financial aid office will decide how much you're going to get in scholarships. Okay, so taking the Latin American Caribbean scholarship out of your mind right now, there are other options in which we call them the out-of-state tuition waiver. Remember how I said before that because you don't pay taxes to the state of Florida, you will be considered an out-of-stater or an international student? So these are the scholarships that you can obtain. So as I said, the financial aid office will be the one determining how much you will get a year, but depending on what they say, you can get the alumni scholarship, which will be up to $8,000 per year. So that will be around $4,000 per semester. The Sunshine Scholarship, it can be up to $16,500. So per semester will be $8,000. And then the Gator Nation Scholarship, which is up to $20,000 per year or $10,000 per semester. So just so you know, you're always going to get the same scholarship or the same waiver throughout your 4 years of undergrad, degree. And the other thing to take into consideration is how many credits you're taking per semester. Okay, so let's say that you're taking 15 credits, you may receive the full amount. But if you're taking less credits than a full-time student, you may receive a decreased amount from what it is stated in this slide. Okay, so yeah, this is what we call the out-of-state tuition waiver. But if you receive the Latin American and Caribbean scholarship, then you will be considered a Florida or not considered a Florida student, but you will receive tuition as if you were a Florida student. So the tuition is going to decrease so much that then you won't qualify for these scholarships. I hope that makes sense a little bit. I'm going to pass it up to Matt so he can talk about graduate opportunities.
Thank you, Samantha. So yeah, so when it comes to graduate school funding is very different than our undergraduate funding at our institution. So at UF, we do have two main ways of funding your education as a graduate student. The first one is a graduate assistantship or a fellowship. These are set by the departments that you're going to be applying for. So if you're applying to graduate school, say in microbiology and cell sciences, then you apply through for maybe a master's or a PhD, and the department takes care of the funding, not the university. So all the funding does come through the departments, not the university. And again, the biggest one is through assistantships. Now, an assistantship usually could be a teaching assistantship or maybe a research assistantship, or sometimes usually just a general assistantship as well. Now, with the assistantship, you might be required to teach up to 20 hours per week, maybe an undergraduate class with a professor, as well as maybe you're going to be working with working in a research lab for up to 20 hours per week, helping a professor on a specific research project. And usually with that, it does cover usually the cost of the tuition, usually covers a stipend amount, and usually it usually covers like health insurance, maybe housing, some other things like that that are included within the assistantships as well. That's the same with fellowships as well. So with a fellowship, you might get an academic fellowship to be at the University of Florida. And with that, you will be maybe working with a professor on a specific project. And again, usually covers the cost of tuition, room and board, food, all that kind of stuff within the stipend amounts. Again, when it comes to any kind of graduate funding, it's really important that you do speak to the departments about graduate school funding at our institution. Our graduate school professors are extremely helpful and they're out there willing to work with you, especially if you want to work with, if you want to do a PhD program, so a doctorate program. You might be it's really encouraging for you to reach out to a professor, maybe someone who has a similar research project that you might want to work on. Get to know the professor, talk to them a little bit, and then start asking those questions about what funding is available for you as a student if you decide to come to the University of Florida. Again, every department has different funding opportunities, but the main ones are the graduate assistantships. Also, Florida has a great program called the Florida and Brazil Linkage Program. And the Florida Brazil Linkage Institute unites the resources of 11 universities of the state of Florida, state university system, and 28 institutions of Division of Florida colleges. And what the Florida Brazil Linkage Program is a scholarship that you do have to apply for. It's a very rigorous scholarship that you have to fill out. But this does also grant you the in-state tuition, just like the LAC award. UF has become one of the biggest schools for students from Brazil in the United States. As most of you probably are aware, 1/3 of the Brazilians in the United States are living in the state of Florida. And literally, and like I said, we have more students from Brazil. That's one of our largest countries, our institution that we get our students from. And like I said, and we have a huge Latin American student association, and the Brazil-Florida linkage program is something we're extremely proud about. That is only for graduate students to apply for. So it's something that, again, it's a very rigorous application process for the Florida-Brazil linkage program, but it does grant you in-state tuition for our institution. I'm going to send it out over to Samantha to give us some closing remarks.
For sure. So as you can see here, these are just some tips and tips that we like to give to our students that are looking to apply to the University of Florida. So as always, stay on top of the process. So when you apply, you will receive a username and a password that will give you access to your UF portal. In there, you will see a status in there you will see a checklist, and it will tell you the things that we have received from you, the things that we're still missing. We're constantly checking your application just in case we have missed something, and we will contact you and let you know that, hey, please send us this so we can move forward with your application. So please stay on top of it. When it comes to funding opportunities, it is very, we encourage students to reach out to each department. So as we have been talking about this before, we have 16 colleges across the university. So it depends on the major that you want to go into. So feel free to reach out to the department, and they will be able to tell you if they have funding opportunities beyond of what the Office of Admission has to offer. And other things such as, hey, if you are a U.S. citizen, there is something called FAFSA, which is funding that comes from the federal government. Other things as working on campus that will help affording with the paying the tuition as well. So just simple things like that. We also like to encourage students to research about all the universities that you're considering. Okay, so some students don't really know that they just apply to a lot of universities just to have something on the table, but please do some research and see if there's an option to maybe do a virtual tour, and just picture yourself in that university and see if it's going to be a good fit. And we also like to tell students, hey, if you get admitted, congratulations, we're going to help you with the visa process. And if you don't get admitted, we encourage you to maybe apply to the following year. Maybe this year wasn't a good fit. It wasn't meant to be. But we're always welcoming our students from Brazil. It is actually the third country where more students on our campus. So we're just very excited to have you all here, and we just want to give you thank you for the opportunity to speak. So at this point, we are going to take questions. But yep, as we said, we're just very excited to be here with all of you, and we just want to share a little bit of our active and very energetic university that we have here.
Thank you so much, Samantha and Matthew, as well, for this amazing presentation on everything that the University of Florida has to offer. Matthew, you were going to say something? Sorry.
Yeah, so it looks like we got some questions in the chat box and that kind of stuff. So I wanted to just address some of these. One of the ones that someone sent directly to me was, they said, can an athlete get a full ride scholarship there? I would like this opportunity. I'm Brazilian and I'm federated in track and field. So we do have scholarships for athletics here at the University of Florida, but that's something you need to work specifically with the coaches for here at UF. So you want to reach out to the coaches of the specific program that you're going to be doing to ask those questions about scholarships when it comes to athletics. So our office, the Office of Admissions, we can help you with finding the coach's contact information, but we can't unfortunately talk to you about scholarships when it comes to athletics, because each sport at the university is different when it comes to athletic scholarships at our institution.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for answering that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's great. We also said we also got one about how do I get that $500 per semester scholarship? Where to apply for that? I think we talked about that a little bit in the presentation. You do have to talk to the departments. So each department has a different process on how you can get that $500 scholarship. But every department has like either some information on their website, or you would just want, or it will just say to email them to start the process for inquiring about how to get the $500 per semester scholarship. Again, like I said, some departments will require you to maybe fill out an application and submit financial forms, some other things like that. But for the most part, you just need to talk to each department here at UF, and they'll be able to work with you on getting the $500 scholarship to then qualify for the LAC award. Now, one thing that I think Samantha mentioned earlier is with the tuition waivers that our office gives out, those are not scholarships, the waivers. So that cannot be used in consideration for the LAC award. We gotta say is the LAC scholarship, is it given once every term, right? But is it renewable? Yes, the LAC is renewable so once you get it one time, you can get it renewed every semester. As long as you stay in good academic standing, as well as you are maintaining a full academic credit hours, the scholarship will renew. You just need to take your renewed you do have to have the department sign off on the renewed letter. And you'll take it to the International Center here at the University of Florida or at any of the institutions that you attend, and they will be able to renew your scholarship. It is something that, because you are classified as an out-of-state or an international student, we can't just make it so it stays it for every single semester, but you'll work with the International Center, and the International Center will then renew your scholarship for you. Also, if anyone has any just general questions about the University of Florida, or if anything else that we can help answer for you, this is your time to ask us anything that you would like. Is it possible to still apply for fall 2023? Yes, our application is still open for fall 2023. If you are applying as a freshman, then you can submit your application all the way up until March 1st. You will be in what we call a space availability round. So we'll review based off of space in our class. We do keep our application up all the way up open until March 1st. If you're applying for graduate school or as a transfer student, our deadlines are listed on our website, and you're more than welcome to still consider and still apply online.
I don't mean to barge in, sorry, but Matthew, thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you so much, Samantha. I'm actually from Education in the State of Rio de Janeiro. I just wanted to clarify my question, because this is what's really not clear for me about the LAC scholarship. I know that one of the requirements is the scholarship the student receives must be from a state or federal funds, right? The assumption I have is that most international students receive scholarships from institutional funds because they're international. So I guess I'm just not understanding quite clearly where the scholarship is coming from, because if I understand it correctly, like, please help me understand. So you receive a scholarship of at least $500 US, and then you can be awarded the LAC award to be considered for in-state tuition. Is the $500 scholarship coming from LAC, and then with that scholarship you're considered for in-state tuition, or does it come from a third party, like a third source?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you so much. And I actually, I remember you and I had lunch together in Rio de Janeiro. So it's nice to see you again. Yeah, it's definitely nice to see you again. So yeah, with the LAC award, the scholarship, the LAC award is just the name of the scholarship. It's not it's not a person, it's not a group, it's not a certain thing. So the funds do have to come from the state of Florida. So each department here at the University of Florida is awarded funding from the state to award to students for scholarship money. So every university in the state of Florida, there's 11 of us, so Florida State, USF, UCF, each department gets state-funded dollars that we can spend on students per semester on scholarships. It's usually a couple thousand for each semester that each department is given to help students out. So if they have a student who is struggling, they can give that funding out to that student who is struggling. Or if they have a student who is, like in this situation, is an LAC student, they can give that student that $500 scholarship per semester to help fund it. So we want to show, because what the LAC award is trying to do is show a buy-in between the university and the state of Florida within the department, within letting us know that they really want this student in their department and they really want this student to stay with us. So those funds are either state or federal funding. So each department gets federal funding as well in the United States. So you get a little bit of federal funding to help pay for maybe like if you're doing an NIH scholarship, if you're doing NIH grant, which is a National Institute of Health grant, that's funding that's coming from the federal government to help in that kind of stuff. So you can use a little bit of that money then to award the student a $500 scholarship to then be used towards the LAC award. So these are all state or federal funds that are awarded to each department to help students in order to stay into education or maybe pursue and move forward.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And the last thing is, if I'm a first-year applicant, I should reach out to the department. Even though I'm an undergrad first-year applicant, I'm going to reach out to my department, ask them about how I can qualify to that type of scholarship through that department and then receive that scholarship and then be considered for the LAC award, right? Okay.
Correct. Yeah. So one thing is for freshmen is you should wait to get your admission decision before you reach out and ask if you for the LAC award. So we don't release our admission decisions for the students who meet our November 1st deadline until the last Friday in February. That's after that date is when you should reach out to the departments and ask about the LAC award. If you apply in our second round, you get a decision on the last Friday in March. That's when you should start reaching out to the departments and ask it. So you want to make sure that you have been admitted to the university. We use the admission to the university to determine good standing during that first semester. So you have to be, since we don't have grades for you yet, you have to be in, and one of the policies is being in good standing. So your admission to the university qualifies you as being in good standing. So again, you might want, so if you are a first-year student and you are considering applying for the LAC award, just wait until you have been admitted to the university first, because the departments don't know who you are at that point, and they won't find out that information until after we release all of our decisions, either the last Friday in February or the last Friday in March.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Very, very clear. Thank you.
Are there other questions? Does the University of Florida prioritize standardized tests? I don't think we prioritize the standardized tests, but we do require the standardized tests. So one thing that a lot of students have asked in the past is, do I have to score a 1450 or 1550 in order to get admitted to the University of Florida? And the answer to that is no. And like I said, we look at you using a holistic admissions approach. So we're going to look at everything you do in the application process to make an admissions decision. So the SAT or ACT is just one part. But for all state universities in the state of Florida, it is required for you to submit the SAT or ACT for undergraduate admissions only. If you're applying for a transfer or graduate school, the only tests that are required is the TOEFL or the IELTS exams. But for freshman admission, if you're applying as a first-year student, the SAT or ACT is required. It's just one part of the application process. We don't prioritize those tests over other parts of the application. I like to look at it as a big pie and give certain weights. I get 25% of weights towards your grades, 25% of weight towards your test scores, 25% of your weight as towards your holistic review, so that's your extracurriculars and your essay, and then the other 25% on everything else in your application. So in that kind of stuff. So if you think about that, if you eat one slice of the pie and that's the SAT or ACT, that's just, you still are left with 75%. That's still a passing grade. You still could potentially get admitted to the university. So do we prioritize it? Probably not. We do not, but are they required? Yes, they are. Now I'm hungry for pie. So is there any other questions? We have a few more minutes and we are happy to answer any other questions. If you want to unmute yourself, you're able to do that as well. Just unmute yourself and ask your question live. You're more than welcome to do that as well.
Hi. Can I just ask a question really quick?
Of course.
As I was listening to your, well, thank you very much. As I was listening to your presentation and you were talking about the LAC and the merit-based scholarship, I was wondering, is it possible for me to get both at the same time or no? Okay.
No. So yeah, you can't get a merit-based scholarship. Or if we do, so what we're trying to do with both of these awards is reduce your tuition costs. So you can't, so if you receive the LAC award, that qualifies you for in-state tuition. So our scholarship then would make you be under so our scholarship, if say you got the Gator Nation scholarship, that's $8,000 per semester. Well, your semester is you're only paying $6,000 with the LAC award. So then you would actually be below it, and we're not going to pay you to get an education at our university.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. And also, I had just another really quick question. You were talking to Mr. Achila about the deadlines, mainly for when I should start applying for the LAC program. And I was actually wondering, because in the University of Florida, you have the priority application, right? Which is basically the earlier you apply, the higher the chance it is for you to get that. Is it the same thing with the LAC program, or You know, is it best for me to wait a little bit more?
Like I told Mr. Achilla, is that you do need to wait until you get your admission decision, which will come if you apply in our priority review. It comes out the last Friday in February. So and like I said, so you want to after the last Friday in February, if you find that you've been admitted to the University of Florida, that's when you'll want to start reaching out to the departments and asking about the LAC opportunities. Because the departments don't get to find out who's been admitted until after the last Friday in February, just like everybody else here at the University of Florida. So you do want to wait till that time because, but you do want to wait after the last Friday in February. It's really important that you do start reaching out to them, just because that's when it's actually before our transfer students, and it's actually because our transfer students don't get their decisions till later on in May and June, and it's before a lot of our graduate students. So waiting till the last Friday in February does not put you at a disadvantage and that kind of stuff by any means, but you do need to wait till at least that last Friday in February or the last Friday in March to start reaching out to them.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
No problem. I would assume you applied to UF. Is that true?
I'm sorry?
Did you apply to UF?
I have. I applied for the priority application. Yeah, now I'm just waiting. Now I'm just waiting for the results. Hoping for the best. Hoping for the best.
I'm sure you're going to do just fine.
Oh, thank you. That's great. That's great to hear. Thank you very much.
Is there any other questions from any other student that we can help answer at this time? Again, you can come on, you can unmute yourself and ask the questions, or if anything you need to know about the University of Florida, we are happy to help you. All right, well, I'm not seeing any other, I was just one popped up. Is there a list of universities that have the LAC Scholarship in Florida? There is a list. If you just type in LAC Award in the state, so I'll say this, there's not really a list, but any of the 12 state institutions in the state of Florida, any of the 12 state schools, it has to be a state-funded institution, offer the LAC Award. So that, again, is like Florida State University, University of Central Florida, University of South Florida, Florida International University, Florida A&M University. Any of the state universities does accept it, but a school like the University of Miami, which is a private school, or St. Leo University, which is a private school, does not accept the LAC Award. So they do not do the LAC at private schools. It's only the public schools in the state of Florida that you can get the LAC Award with. Is it possible to have a fee waiver? Sadly, no. There is no fee waivers for international students, so we do not have any ways to waive the application fee as an international student. But I will tell you this, our application fee is only $35 plus a $2 processing fee, so it's about $37 total. So our application is quite cheap compared to a lot of other universities.
All right. Thank you, Matthew, so much for the amazing presentation. Thank you, Samantha, as well, for everything. It was just so good. We had so many great questions about the University of Florida and everything that it has to offer to Brazilian students. So you guys can also reach out to Matthew and Samantha through their email. Então, agora a gente vai finalizar a nossa sessão. Vocês podem entrar em contato com o Matthew e com a Samantha por e-mail, que foi disponibilizado antes. E muito obrigado por terem participado deste evento da Rede Education USA. Até a próxima.